Why aren't more people talking about this show? Ugh. Alright guys, before I begin talking about Disney Plus's Renegade Nell, be warned, I repeat, there might be spoilers ahead. I don't think I'm going to spoil the show. I'm going to do my absolute best not to give away any plot points. I think that this is a really good show, and I don't want to inadvertently dissuade anyone from checking it out. So while I'm going to attempt not to spoil it, if you haven't seen it, please go to Disney Plus right now and check it out, then come back and check out this video if you don't mind. I think you should go in fresh, very much like I did. There you go, there's your warning. In spite of that, if you're sticking around even though you haven't seen it yet, like I said, I'm gonna do my best. So for the sake of clarity and for the sake of those of you who stuck around in spite of not seeing the show yet, let me regale you with the plot. So this show is an action-adventure fantasy, emphasis on the fantasy, light on the fantasy, period piece. It takes place in the 18th century, in 18th century England. And it follows a young woman named Nell Jackson, don't call her Nellie, who left home when she was very young because she fell in love with a British officer. So they get married, and he, of course, is called to serve, and he dies in battle. And Nellie then masquerades as a male soldier in order to serve in the war, whatever conflict England had going on at the time. It's the early 1700s, so I'm pretty sure they were at war with Spain. So that would make it the War of Spanish Succession. Anyway, that's not important. And when the show begins, she's coming home from that experience. She's coming home without a husband, and because she wasn't legally a soldier, since she wasn't a registered soldier, she comes home without commission. So no husband, no money, and the war is still going on. So she really didn't achieve much by serving. Anyway, so she is at a very low point in her life, returning home. But when one door closes, another one opens. Here comes the fantasy bit. There's this magical fairy named Billy Blanks who takes a shine to her and decides to be her silent, invisible companion and help her out through advice and counsel, and most of the time, simple company. But whenever Nell is in a dangerous situation, Billy grants her super strength and super speed, which is awesome, which makes for some incredible action sequences. So in the process of that, of her becoming this very powerful, legendary character within her community in England, a couple of deaths happen. Her father dies and the local magistrate dies, and both deaths are blamed on her. So she goes on the run and becomes a highwaywoman, a highway robber, as they say here, and she spends her days stealing from the rich and helping the helpless. And like in her legend, just grows and grows and grows to the point that she gets involved and uncovers and might even manage to stop a massive plot against the Queen of England. Suffice it to say, this show is incredible, well thought out, and very layered, as you can see by the plot. This is a show that I've been hearing about for years, and it's been in my periphery for a long time, And I kept hearing that, oh, they're making this in England. They're making this big action period piece for Disney Plus. And I remember early on, I think it was called The Ballad of Renegade Nell. But as it is American tradition, they shortened the title. And I even on social media, I saw a post by one of the crew members saying that he had been working on the show since 2020. So that made me feel like, wow, this has been in production even longer. But it shows, because the quality of the show is amazing. All these Star Wars and Marvel shows that Disney keeps pumping out on this assembly line, just very, very quickly, one after the other, one after the other. And please, don't get me wrong, I enjoy most of them. But it's apparent, even though they have a big budget and plenty of resources, a great crew and a great cast, it's apparent that they're rushed. Renegade Nell, you can tell, is something that they took their time with, that they spent plenty of time developing it and figuring it out and planning it out, and executing it with the utmost quality. Because like most British productions, the cinematography, the production design, the costume design, the effects, the fight choreography, and as per usual, the acting, all top notch. Just excellent show. And out of all that, I especially want to highlight the fight choreography, because this show has some badass fight choreography, some of it even performed by the cast themselves. Not to take away from the stunt performers and the stunt doubles. Amazing stuff. But it's just everybody together pushing the boulder up the hill. It's not like Sisyphus pushing the boulder alone. It's just everybody as a team pushing this boulder up a hill. And it's apparent. It's apparent in the result. It's apparent in every second of footage, especially when it comes to the action, because it is legit. It is some of the best fight choreography I've seen in a TV show in a long time. Some of the best that I've seen since the original Netflix Daredevil and Into the Badlands. I'm that serious about that. Where I personally enjoyed Echo, and the fighting was fine, especially in I believe the first episode when Daredevil pops up. That fight scene was pretty good, but for the rest of the show, the fighting was just, the fight choreography was just okay. This show, every single fight scene is excellent. My favorite was the first one, because it catches you completely off guard, and when that one highwayman tries to shoot Nell, and she opens the door of the carriage and uses the door of the carriage as a shield, and it catches the bullet, and then the guy goes to run away, and she punches the door, and the door comes off of its hinges, and it flips off of the carriage and smacks the guy in the back of the head and falls down. That was a practical effect. That door really hit that guy, and it blunk, 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 and it just landed next to him. Nowadays, multi-million-dollar Hollywood movie would do that with CG, and even a 5-year-old would be able to tell that the door was CG. But here, they used this amazing practical effect, and God knows how many times that poor stuntman got hit in the back or in the head by a freaking carriage door. But they got the take, and the take that they got looked amazing. If the camera starts shaking, it's because Scooter is claiming the sticks and rubbing his body up against them. There's no earthquake here. We're fine. Anyway, behave. Anyway, Scooter's my cat, for those of you who don't know. Anyway, so, like most British shows and a few British movies that I've seen, that are fantasy-based, not only do they do the fantasy portion, the fantastic portion of the production, the story, really well, but they also provide brilliant social commentary. Renegade Nell is no exception. This is a show that comments strongly about gender norms and how even though things have changed for the better, a lot of these issues remain, which is crazy. Again, this show takes place in the 18th century, and a lot of the things that are referenced and made fun of are 100% real. Like, for example, when you first see Nell in the show, she's coming home, like I just said, like I described earlier, she's coming home from serving as a soldier. She's wearing the remnants of her uniform. She's wearing a red coat and a tricorn hat. That's what British soldiers wore during the 1700s. She served. She served illegally. She wasn't a registered soldier, but she served, so she most definitely earned that uniform. Those are her clothes. And yet when everybody sees her, even her dad, they look her over and go, "Why are you dressed like a man?" Even though, again, that's her uniform. Those are her clothes. And another thing that keeps happening over and over again is that because they have started to establish a particular look for women at this point in history, very few people are used to seeing women not wearing a dress. They're not used to seeing women wearing pants. They're not used to seeing women that are not wearing a corset. So just Nell dressing in that fashion, in pants, with no corset, with an officer's jacket and officer's hat, just that alone, in spite of the fact that you can still tell, that's a woman, very beautiful woman, people still confuse her for a man because they're just not used to seeing a woman dressed like that. They see her dressed like that and they instantly think, "Oh, young man, excuse me, let me talk to you for a second." And again, she does very little to disguise herself. There's one episode where she puts on like a little tiny mustache, but the rest of the time, there's an episode where she dresses up like a doctor and all she does is put on a coat, a wig, and a hat, and that's it. And everybody just automatically, if you're a doctor, you have to be a man, right? So again, using what was transpiring at the time to comment on something that unfortunately still prevails today. Just brilliant writing and brilliantly performed by the star of the show, Louisa Harlan. And another thing that I absolutely love is that it really blurs the line when it comes to who is an antagonist and who's a villain and who's the hero for that matter. Because the whole time that Nell's on the run with her sisters for a crime that she didn't commit, she's constantly questioning herself and whether what she's doing is good or not, whether she's a good person, and they try to set up a code of conduct and only steal from the rich, but then one of her sisters gets severely hurt and they need a doctor, so they kidnap a doctor and force the doctor to operate on her sister at gunpoint, and over again, they're all questioning whether what they're doing is correct. And on the flip side of that, it's never quite 100% clear who is the main villain until the very end, which was brilliant. Of course, the guy that plays the stereotypical like mustache twirling villain, which I have to highlight, Adrian Lester, who plays the Earl of Poynton. Oh my God, like you could tell that this guy was having a blast with this role. Like he plays just the most delicious megalomaniacal zealot you could ever see, and also he's a dark sorcerer on top of everything, super manipulative. Yeah, he has a classic soap opera villain quality about him, where he's just super manipulative and he just talks people into doing things for him or doing his dirty work for him. Great stuff, but was he the actual villain? Was he? I mean, he was an antagonist that was on the same level as Nell. He definitely posed a threat. But was he the one that really set the events in motion? It makes you question it. And on the subject of that, I have to give credit to Alice Kremmelberg, who played Sophia Wilmot on the show. And when I saw the trailer, I honest to God thought that she was Katie McGraw. And then I'm watching the show, and the whole time, amazing actor, doing an incredible performance, gorgeous woman, but I was super distracted, like trying to looking at her, and I'm like, are you sure that's not Katie McGraw? She looks a lot like Katie McGraw from Merlin and Supergirl, played Lena Luthor in Supergirl. Um, they are the Natalie Portman, Keira Knightley situation. But her in particular, she's the one that kept going back and forth whether is she good? She's good, right? She's on Nell's side. Oh, wait, no, maybe she's a bad guy. Maybe she's on the Lord's, on the Earl's side. Wait, maybe she's not. Oh, hold on. And she kept, and one thing that I thought was beautiful and a sign of great writing is when the villain's motivations are 100% clear. And her motivations were as simple as, I just want to protect my family name, which was major at the time. You know, your family legacy was more valuable than currency, or just as valuable as currency. So that's it. At the end of the day, that's all she was trying to do, but she made a lot of bad choices. But it was a very well layered, well written character. And it reminded me a lot of Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. When the show starts, he's the stereotypical school bully, nothing new about this character. And then right at the end of season 1, the character does a complete 180 and he becomes the Steve Harrington that we now love, where we can it's difficult to imagine the show without him. But that's a tribute to Joe Keery's ability as an actor to be able to perform both versions of the character. Something that wasn't planned, by the way. He was supposed to be the bully throughout, but he's such a likable guy that they threw in that change to his character, that curveball, and he handled it well. Same as Alice in this show. But the person that deserves the most flowers, the one who holds it all together, in a show full of awesome writing, awesome production, awesome cinematography, and amazing acting, somehow, some way, this person is a cut above the rest and makes all of that amazing stuff just work. And that is Louisa Harland, who plays Nell Jackson. Don't call her Nellie. Most of you may remember her from Dairy Girls, in which she's fantastic. Very much so in this show. She is incredible. Just what an amazing lead. Like, she took this whole show, placed it on her shoulders, and carried it so well. And like I said, there's a lot of elements that are a group effort, but if the lead doesn't work, the whole show falls apart. And man, she carried it beautifully. And she's just one of those leads that when she's not on screen, you miss her. Even though this show has a very intriguing, enthralling story, but she's so charismatic, so likable, so cool. You can understand why a certain character late in the series falls in love with her. Don't want to give that away, because it's too hilarious to give away. But man, like, if I had mild respect for her work on Dairy Girls. I thought, oh, she's pretty good. She has potential. No, this show made me into a full-on fan. Like, she is terrific. This girl has a bright future ahead of her. I hope to see her in many more things, bigger, better productions, if that's even possible, since this show is is so well made. One last actor that I want to highlight is Joely Richardson, of all people, freaking the great Joely Richardson, playing Lady Alluria Morganhanger, who is the queen of all media at the time. Um, Again, another person very much like Adrian Lester, who you could tell was just having a blast playing this Cruella de Vil, Oprah Winfrey, super powerful woman who just, she's not used to losing. She's not used to anybody saying no. And also, and more importantly, playing a different version of a woman of power. Because Nell is a very powerful woman, but nobody respects her. Lady Alluria, on the other hand, everybody respects her. Everybody listens to her. But the price of that is that she's a bit unlikable and she is very intimidating. And most people fear her. So the question is, which way do you want to go? Do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? So yeah, just again, I can't emphasize this enough. Cool action adventure, amazing fantasy storytelling, but brilliant social commentary underlining everything. And so the question remains, would I like to see more? God, yes, abso-freaking-lutely. I hope this isn't a one and done, as it is generally the tradition with British shows. They make a handful of episodes. In the case of this show, 8, and that's that, one and done, and it's over. And every great now and then, we get something like Doctor Who or Red Dwarf. It just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and giving us more. But I hope to see more of this. I love the character of Nell Jackson. I think she's terrific, and I want her to become a pop culture staple. Just like the characters from the shows that I just mentioned. I would love to see a bunch of young ladies at the next San Diego Comic-Con cosplaying as her. I think she has one of the coolest, most well-designed costumes I've seen in a long time. I remember that when Pirates of the Caribbean took off, people were constantly asking Johnny Depp, it's like, how did you come up with Jack Sparrow and his look and the way he acts and all this stuff? And he kept saying that from, as far as he was concerned, pirates were the rock stars of their era. So Jack Sparrow's look and his demeanor were based on rock stars. But from my perception, I always viewed Jack Sparrow as this buffoon whose reputation was way cooler than he is. But in reality, he's just this ridiculous buffoon who just gets by, mostly by accident. On the flip side of that, Nell, she's a legit rock star. She is pure punk rock, anti-establishment, F you, I'm gonna get things done on my own. And last but not least, before I close this out, before I finish talking about the show, I want to address criticism that I heard about the show, which is that they didn't think that the show evoked girl power due to the fact that Nell needs Billy Blind, the fairy, to give her super strength and speed in order to fight and do all the physically amazing stuff that she does on the show. And here's my counterpoint to that. Where have those criticisms been when it comes to Popeye? I see the fairy power that she uses to get through certain fight scenes very much in the same way that I look at Popeye's spinach. It's just an enhancement for the the action sequences, for the fight sequences. The other 90% of the time, it's all Nell. She's the one that comes up with the plans and the strategies, and she comes up with all the disguises and everything to execute whatever her and her sisters and her allies need to do. That all comes from her. Billy is just giving her... This is Smokey. It's another cat. Anyway, the powers just give her an extra boost, a leg up in a world that's completely unfair and unbalanced towards a woman. There you go. So those are my thoughts on Renegade Nell. Go check it out. As per usual, you're welcome to voice your opinions in the comment section below. But the only thing that I ask is please be civil towards one another. We're all on the same team. There's no reason to be rude or racist or sexist or homophobic or any of that in my comment section. Conflict always comes with a price. Kindness is always free. Anyway, and now for the part that most of you watch my videos for, the announcements at the very end. Right now, on my Patreon page, I am counting down the top 10 things that I want to see in the MCU's Fantastic Four. But if you're not a patron and you want to check out the video, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/E-Rant and pledge $1. That's it. You pledge $1 and you're helping me to continue to create content and be the blockbuster buster. And in return, you get bonus videos. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. And now for the big announcement, the ones that you guys really want to know. What is my next honest review? Well, my most successful video last year was my Legends of Fandom video on the CW Powerpuff Girls. So to thank you guys for all your support and for all the views that video got, I am going to follow that up with an honest review of the Powerpuff Girls, the actual show, the original 1998 Greg McCracken Powerpuff Girls with Tara Strong, E.G. Daily, and Kathy Cabadini as the girls. The OG, the one that set it all in motion, the best, the original, the often imitated but definitely never duplicated. You guys really enjoyed me talking about it, so you wanted more, so it's coming. In just a few weeks, a professionally edited and written and edited video talking about one of the greatest shows that, very much like Renegade Nell, evokes girl power. As per usual, thank you so much for your continued support because, and I always say this because it's 100% true, I would not be able to do what I do without you. Say goodbye, Smokey.